Here is a little project using the LED electronic dice boards that you can get from AliExpress or Amazon or eBay for a couple of bucks. Very simple, soldered up, comes with a 417 decade counter, 555 timer, various LEDs and transistors. Simple to put together, but be aware that some of these circuit boards are printed incorrectly. And I suggest that you view Julian Eilet's YouTube video on how to put it together and components and where they go, because the circuit board's printing could be incorrect. I'll put a link to that below. I made a few modifications. I found that the lights blinked a little bit too slow, so I replaced the 1 microfarad capacitor with an 80 picofarad capacitor, which made the lights blink a little faster. I found it a little more pleasing. If you connect a momentary switch, which I've replaced here with 2 wires, you get various patterns on the dice. And every time you push the switch, you get a different dice pattern. Pretty cool. But I wanted to do something a little bit more exciting. I wanted 2 dice. So I made the 2 dice box. Plug in the 9-volt battery, push the button, and you've got 2 dice. So here we have the 2 dice boards. I have replaced the LEDs with 6-inch wires coming off of the board. I have put white LEDs hot glued in here. If you simply wire both of the momentary switches to this single momentary switch, when you press the switch, you get the same number on both dice. That's not good. So on one of the boards, I put a 470 microfarad capacitor in line with the momentary switch and a bypass resistor to discharge the capacitor so that the dice will light at approximately the same time. And by putting the capacitor in, you get a different number on each dice every time you press the button. So if you wish, you can stop right there. Have a nice 2 dice box. Every time you hit the switch, you get 2 dice. Manually operated, battery powered. Now let's take a quick look at the circuit diagram. So if you decide to stop here, here is the simple block diagram for what's in the box. I've got the 2 dice boards. I've got the 470 microfarad capacitor on one of the boards to prevent it from showing the same number as the other one. The 100 kiloohm resistor here prevents the capacitor from significantly changing the on-off time of the 2 dice. Momentary switch to turn them on-off switch for the battery. I've got the battery mounted on the outside of the box so I can change the battery. Very simple. So now, check this out. Plug in our power. And we run without pressing the switch. It will run all day long until you disconnect the power. You can leave the battery in or take it out, doesn't matter. And there you go. So, what's going on? Let's look at our power supply. In here we have, coming from our 120 volt AC, we have a wall wart from an old cell phone charger, 5 volt transformer. 5 volt out goes to a 5 volt relay, goes to a 555 timer, which is set to pulse to the relay. The relay is plugged in to the data lines on the USB cable. The data lines connected to the common and normally open terminals of the relay. And the 5 volt power going into the 555 timer, which puts out a 20 millisecond pulse about every 5 or 6 seconds. Circuit diagram and timing for the 555 timer will be shown here in a few minutes. So once we plug in our 5 volt transformer, the relay starts pulsing about every 5 or 6 seconds. We plug the power into our dice box, and voila, we have automatic dice rolling. Makes a nice little display. You can put it on your shelf and let it run to your heart's content. So I will follow this here momentarily with the circuit diagram and further comments, so stay tuned. And here is the overall block diagram. In the dice box itself, I've added the 5 volt to 9 volt step-up converter to properly power the LEDs. In the control box, I've got 120 volt coming in, going through a 5 volt transformer. The 5 volt transformer is powering the 555 timer. The values I've used for the resistors and the capacitors will give approximately a 20 microsecond pulse every 5 or 6 seconds. You can change the resistor values or the capacitor values to get different time on, time off if you wish. The output pin from the 555 triggers the 5 volt relay. The relay comes on, is connected to the switch circuits in the DAS box, and the connector I used was a 4-wire USB connector. You could use anything you wish to connect the transformer to the step-up converter or the relay switches to the switches on the DAS. Note I've added 2 diodes. I've added one coming off the battery and one coming off the step-up converter so that you don't get current flowing back into these devices when one of them's on. And there's the circuit. Very simple. In the description below, I have added some links to Julian Eilet's YouTube video, along with some of the sources that I used for the items in the box. Have fun. Just as an afterthought, you could add a tilt switch in parallel with the momentary switch and shake the box to have the dice roll.